Chapter 30. We're going to die. I'm going to die. And my family would never know what happened. Fox strained against his bonds. The ropes bit into his wrists, cutting his flesh, but they would not budge. Not that escaping was much of an option. Regulaire, his entourage, and most of the soldiers left the hut following his death sentence proclamation. But two soldiers, including the leader of the Mosork band they encountered in the woods, stayed behind to guard the group until sundown. At that point they would be escorted, carried, if necessary, to makeshift gallows at the edge of camp, where they would be hanged one after another until all five were dead. Bach's chin fell to his chest as his heart continued to race. The Mosork leader patted Isabella on the head. "And you will be there to watch your friends die." The princess defiantly jerked away from the guard's hand. The male guard pointed at Bach, a vindictive grin on his face. "Look at how that un shakes." Bach tried to stop his hands from trembling, to no avail. "Yes, I'm scared. I do not want to die." Turning away from the hostages, the guard then produced a deck of cards from his boot. "Care for a game?" The woman commanding the raiding party sat down across the table. "Typical Amerenian coward. They all deserve to die like dogs. And yes, I'd love to take your share of the reward money the glorious Regulaire has promised." The man laughed, then dealt the cards. "What are we going to do?" Kotarian whispered. "I've been betrayed by a girl I've known since I was 14 summers, and I cannot perish in this backwater before I avenge that slight." He shook even worse than Bach, and his eyes bulged. The sorcerer's haughty veneer of arrogance had been stripped away by the promise of imminent death. "By the Exalted One, he's right. We can't give up," Aventil added. "Isabella, if you can get a finger under my bonds, maybe I can loosen yours and we untie each other." With one eye on the guards, they started to move ever so slowly, inching across the straw floor until they were back to back. Bach's heart pounded as the lovers struggled to loosen the other's ropes. Like them, he kept a close watch on the guards. When the woman turned to check on her prisoners, Bach quickly interjected. "Lost enough money yet?" to draw her attention away from Isabella and Aventil. "Silence, cur!" Her gold and silver chains bounced as she snapped. When the guard turned back around, Isabella gave Bach the slightest hint of a smile in recognition of his quick thinking. She and Aventil continued to work on each other's bonds, and after 10 excruciating minutes, he partially freed one of her hands. Hands that commanded the immense power of high magic. Bach lipped his lips. "Come on, Aventil." With a few more minutes' work, he hopefully could loosen the ropes enough for Isabella to cast a spell. Those guards might not be so arrogant then. But everything changed on a cruel fluke. The Mosork guard dropped one of her cards. When she leaned over to retrieve it, she noticed Isabella's ropes drooped off her wrists. The pink and black-clad marauder jumped from her chair. "Ya dishonorable dishrag!" She grabbed the princess by the collar of her shirt and lifted her off the ground. Isabella's feet dangled 6 inches off the floor as the Mosork leader pulled Isabella's face into her own. "There is no escape from here. Do that again, and you will join your comrades on the gallows." Isabella's voice rose in pitch. "I'd rather die beside my brave friends than live as your captive." "Your fate has already been decided by the glorious Regulaire. You must leave, but he never said I had to be gentle." The Mosork flung Isabella across the room, away from Aventil. "Ah!" she cried as her back hit the floor, the thin layer of straw providing minimal cushion. She laid there, unmoving. Although still bound, Aventil bolted to his feet and raced toward the fallen princess. "Devils! You can—" The other guard's heavy boot slammed into his midsection. He, too, collapsed to the floor, gasping. Isabella gained enough strength to lift her head. Her long hair spilled wildly around her face.
Stop! Don't hurt him!
The Mosork woman pointed at her. You stay on that side of the room, away from your concubine. If either of you moves again, he dies. The guard sat back down and resumed their game. Ha! I take your bird again, the man exclaimed, causing the woman to throw her cards to the table in disgust. Bach's body went slack, all air leaving his lungs. Our one chance of escape gone. The laughs, shouts, and other exclamations from the guard's card game provided the only sounds for the next few moments. The servant girl slipped back into the tent carrying a heaping plate of meat and a sloshing jug of red wine. She sat both items in the center of the table and poured each of the guards a full cup. Better eat as much as you can, the man taunted through a full mouth. The way I'm going, you won't be able to afford dinner for some time. Shut up and drink your wine. The Mosork woman roughly pushed the servant with the hard toe of her boot. Keep this coming. I worked up a thirst tossing around that flower-smelling girl. The servant simply nodded and knelt by the table, head still down toward the floor. The card game, and the accompanying silence of the prisoners, continued for a few minutes, allowing Isabella and Aventil to sit upright again to reclaim at least a little dignity.
Bach, there is something I must tell you.
Isabella spoke quietly as their captors stared at their cards.
I hope it is a plan to escape.
The princess paused, swallowed, then sighed heavily. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could continue, Aventil nudged her shoulder.
Hey, that guard has fallen asleep.
Sure enough, the guard who had kicked Aventil moments earlier now rested his head on the table, eyes closed.
Lousy bastard. Think you can get out of losing by falling.
The woman didn't even finish her thought before her eyes rolled to the back of her head. The servant girl checked both guards to ensure they were deeply asleep. Then she put her hands on her hips and giggled. I got to tell you, I done some doozies in my life, growing up on the streets and all, but nothing quite like this. As one, Bach and Isabella looked at her, eyes wide. Umrah! She took a dagger from one of the guards and cut the bonds holding each of the prisoners. They all rose to their feet and stretched, save for Corrigan, who remained seated. Wingate collected the guards' weapons and used the ropes to bind their former captors.
Isabella, are you hurt?
Aventil ran to her side as soon as Umrah freed him, but the princess waved him off.
I am fine,
she insisted. Aventil recoiled.
I just wanted to make sure you weren't hurt, my sweet. I said I am fine, Aventil, and I do not appreciate you always treating me like a porcelain doll.
Isabella bit her lip. Bach could tell she regretted the angry words the instant she spoke them. Aventil froze, then stomped to the other side of the hut. Point made. Forgive me for being concerned.
Aventil, wait.
But he had turned his back, crossed his arms, and withdrawn from the conversation.
Best let him be, your majesty, Corrigan cautioned. His pride's hurt, but he'll calm down.
She sighed.
I am sure you are correct, Commander. For now, let us focus on escaping this awful place.
Isabella massaged her bruised wrists.
Do not misunderstand, Umrah. We certainly are grateful. But how did you find us? And how did you... Well, how did you do all this?
She gestured around the canvas hut at the guards sleeping on the table and severed ropes now on the floor. Umrah grinned.
I've always been one to push my luck. I've been following you since you left Nassim. I wasn't ready to give up and figured I might prove myself along the way. Reckon I was right about that.
I'll say. Bach rubbed the back of his sweat-soaked hair. But I'd still love to get my healer's bag back.
I might be able to help with that too. They're storing all your things with the horses in the stable out back. As for how I got in, I've been a servant since I was old enough to hold a tray and pour a drink. We got a way of being invisible around important people, and I've gotten real good at it. Wasn't hard to blend in, especially once I snagged this uniform and put some colour in my hair. Isabella put her hands on the young woman's shoulders. You are amazing. But all those soldiers we saw weren't looking for a lone servant girl. They keep their eyes open for important folks, like yourself. But every city, every palace, every camp has a servant's entrance round back, so that folks like me can come and go without getting in the way. Umar then held up a small green glass vial. As for the guards, your majesty, Lord Guternarel takes these sleeping powders every night. Mix 'em with wine, it'll knock a body right out. That is incredible. Isabella's voice rose barely above a whisper. Umra, I promise your courage and loyalty will be rewarded once we return to Ithanel. Umra looked away from the princess. Ah, about that, your majesty. It ain't like I'd turn down a big pile of gold, but I didn't do this for any reward. She paced around the hut, collecting herself and her next words. You see, I seen how you treated Mr. Bach like he was one of your own. I been an orphan since I was 6 summers, sleeping in doorways and begging strangers for scraps of food. As soon as I could, I got a job washing pots and scrubbing floors for a noble class family that thinks I ain't fit to be scraped off their fancy shoes. I don't know. I just hoped maybe there was a place for me too. Isabella said nothing. She just wrapped her arms around Umra's neck and let the servant girl rest her face under her shoulder. Bach felt tears well up in his own eyes when the princess said, And you do, dear girl. You will never leave my side again, Umra Sel. Aventil gently interrupted with a hand on Isabella's arm. Yes, well, we are indebted for your help, Miss Umra. But shouldn't we be getting out of here before Reja Leyers returns? He peeked around the hut's canvas flap into the compound's yard. Yes, we should. Isabella let go of Umra and wiped her own eyes with a lace handkerchief. Kotarian, you and I will use illusion spells to temporarily disguise all of us as Mosork Marauders. Kotarian flexed his fingers. Your Majesty, you have one good reason why I shouldn't burn this miserable place to the ground. Because, inadvertently or not, we are trespassers on foreign soil, and doing so could be considered an act of war. Do you understand, Kotarian? He sighed. Fine, but what if we are discovered? In that case, Kotarian, just save something for me to burn too.